Look, that was 2 days ago. The finance minister came to lay an urgent bill that was referred to the finance committee under a certificate of urgency. And the rationale behind that was because if you look at the 2025 staff level meeting that happened between the World Bank, the IMF, and the Ministry of Finance and Bank of Ghana, they applauded Ghana for the economic recovery program that is pursued and then fiscal consolidation. However, they raised issues of fiscal distress that still persists in the energy sector.
Right.
We inherited an energy sector that was grappling with debt. It was a debt-ridden sector. And if you look at in the value chain, ECG alone owes 68 billion debt. They have 68 billion Ghana cedis debt. IPPs alone, plus other power centers, accounts for about $3.7 billion.
So Gridco is one of them.
Yes.
VRA is
VRA, and then the other Send Power and all those people, they owe $3.7 billion. Now the question we should ask ourselves is that what buffers or what sinking methods did they have in order to pay for these maturing legacy debts? None. That's why the finance minister alluded to the fact that the guarantees that was given, for example, Ameri and Car Power and other energy sources were all depleted in the year 2024. Now, because of the energy transition from hydro to fossil fuel and then thermal, Ghana is heavily relying on liquid fuel as a way of powering our generation. Because Akusumbo no longer, it cannot even supply Greater Accra and Eastern. So we need to do more in terms of expanding our electricity penetration. Now, the simple question we were asked was that what is the impact analysis? Because for every bill to come, we need to do a fiscal impact analysis to see what are the effects of that levy. If we realize that it will burden the Ghanaian, then we oppose it. But if we realize that it won't have any impact on inflation, cost of living, and all those things, then we give the go-ahead. Imoro, what was the end year price of fuel per liter? It was 16.4 Ghana cedis. So as a result of the domestic policy measures and the strategic intervention by the Bank of Ghana, the dollar is declining cumulatively by 19%. So for anybody to even assume that the NDC do not have the locus to introduce 1 Ghana cedi, the question we should ask, how much was handed to the NDC in terms of price for 16.4?
No, it was 40.75.
No,
As
no.
of 7 January.
Oh, I said end year 2024. Why is it?
Oh, no, but you took power in...
No, you see, what policy were you implementing in the last 6 days?
You met 14.75.
No,
please carry on.
So the 16.4 Ghana cedi, the Bank of Ghana and the Ministry of Finance and other favorable external sector performance contributes to reducing the fuel price from 16 to about 12. Tomorrow, the last 8 windows in terms of fuel pricing decreased cumulatively by 8 consecutive times. So if the government policy measures is yielding these results, and we had 3 options. That's what I want every Ghanaian listening to me should understand. We had 3 options. One was to pretend that nothing is wrong and plunge the country into darkness. The MPP always argues that they kept the light on. You kept the light on, yet every state-owned institution in the value chain of electricity generation were riddled with debt. In fact, it will take us 6 years to clear the total debt of ECG. So the options was that one was to pretend that we don't want to do anything about it, let the country plunge into the energy crisis. And you know the impact of energy crisis, this doom, so you know the impact on industrial performance and even household, the discomfort. Then the second one was that we either increase utility tariffs. Bear in mind that the NPP signed an IMF program that had in it a quarterly tariff adjustment. Whether you knew you want it or you don't want it, you must do it in order to pay the legacy debt. So they also brought an executive, in fact, it was a cabinet memo.
But with this quarterly adjustment thing, I want to get some clarity on this.
All right.
Haven't we always had a quarterly adjustment of crisis? I mean, did we need IMF?
No, we need it.
Why?
Because it is a government, the one we had before was a deregulated system.
Yes.
But what the IMF is doing is that you are owing IPPs 3.7 billion. For you to ensure debt sustainability, you must be able to pay off these debts.
Yes, I get
so
that.
they wanted a dedicated source of revenue that can be ring-fenced to solve that problem.
Okay.
And if without it, the government was not mandated. If you remember, there were several times the finance ministry and PRC always fight over tariffs increase. I don't know if you remember.
Okay, so let me get something right. My point is that per the PURC's own acts that established,
yes,
they're supposed to be doing a quarter review of...
Not increase.
No, I'm saying review. So it'll be downwards or upwards.
But in this circumstance, it is not. It's always on the... Since we did the IMF.
Oh, okay, so good. So now you're good. So I think your point is that because of the IMF, program that we've signed on to,
yes,
the review must always be done upwards.
Upwards.
Because of the debt that is being owed.
Overhang.
So even if the indicators or the parameters that are being used is favorable, you still have to do it upwards.
You still have to do the... in fact, water was increased by 4.1%.
Yes.
And the electricity by 7.9%.
Okay, so that clarity is important.
So, because of that, government of
So there's
Ghana,
always an automatic upward review.
Exactly. Because of that, government doesn't have the leverage in order to complain to the IMF because of reputational issues. In fact, the IMF wrote a letter to the Minister of Finance threatening the Minister of Finance that the next tranche of the extended credit facility will not come if we are not able to pay the IPPs. This government, the NPP government, through an executive order to ECG and others, wrote that liquid fuel, because we are transitioning from hydro to thermal, and gas was difficult to get the quantity that we need from Nigeria. Then cabinet made sure that we order liquid fuel. Now, if you make that order that they should not have it in the price build-up, yet you kept on using the liquid fuel. This year alone, government of Ghana need to purchase $1.2 billion liquid fuel in order to power our plants.
And the tariffs
doesn't include the liquid
does not
fuel.
capture that.
It doesn't capture it. We only
but how did we do that?
It was through an executive order.
What was the... Well, you may not be the right person.
It was this way.
What was the philosophy driving that decision, that policy decision?
They didn't want the cost of electricity generation to go up, because ECG were already doing their quarterly tariff adjustment.
Yes.
Look, if we didn't bring this levy, what it simply means is that 1.2 billion Ghana cedis should have been achieved by the ECG. Simple means that you have to increase what?
The tariff.
The tariff. And this levy is a consumption levy, meaning that people have choice on fuel. But in electricity, people do not. Everybody wants to sleep in a very conducive environment. So that's the second option we had, to add the liquid fuel into the pricing build-up, or to pretend that nothing is wrong with the country, or this third method.
And you're saying that the second option, which was to feed it into the tariff structure, would have meant that they would rather have a more devastating impact on consumers compared to
using this method,
slapping it on petrol.
And when we say that, look, I personally also did my own fiscal analysis, and I came to the conclusion that if you know, yesterday was the pricing window start date. We expect that fuel will decline further to 11. So now, once they fix the price at 1 Ghana cedi, what it means is that even next week, when it comes to 11, that 1 cedi will bring them back to today's
because
rate.
It will net it off.
It will net it off. That is just the logic. That's just the smart way we are doing it. And for somebody to even say that as a result of the energy levy, it has increased, or it is 8 times higher than the e-levy that was introduced by the MPP. I'm sure you read something like that.
I've seen that.
What Vice President Baumia need to know is that the total receivables of e-levy in 2024 was 2.7 billion Ghana cedis. We expect through the impact analysis this year to raise a 5.7 billion Ghana cedis in net revenue of what? The energy levy. So, Iboro, what type of mathematics? 2.7 billion, and we expect 5.7 billion. What type of mathematics will give 8 times 2.7 billion equal to 5.7 billion. Does it make sense?
Yes.
People, one of the justifications of the NPP walking out on that was on Wednesday was because Tuesday was because they proposed that we must cut commercial losses and operational losses in the value chain distribution. But they failed to tell us what effort was put in place to reduce those wastages. They failed to do that. In fact, in 2015, the amendment that we did on Tuesday, in 2015, President Mahama instituted what we call the Energy Sector Levy. And the idea was to reduce legacy debt and stabilize the power sector and pay for energy shortfalls. What did we see? When the NPP came to office, in fact, in opposition, they condemned that act, saying that we are burdening Ghanaian. And President Mahama said he took responsibility for the Dumso, but for us to achieve energy stability, we must burden share. So he introduced this levy. The NPP bastardized that act, only to come to office. Not only did they continue to use the A-levy, but they extended the lifetime and also used it to get more borrowing. They use it as what? A collateral to get more money. When the Minister of Finance under Attah Forson came, he absorbed that debt from Issah PLC. You remember that it was used to pay pensions because of the debt restructuring program. So the Energy PLC that was mandated by law to use to retire energy sector debt was used to pay pensioners. The Minister of Finance came because Issah PLC was an entity on its own. So they were not at the dictates of the government. What the government did was that in the books of the Issah PLC was so much debt that government needed to absorb it to free the Issah to perform its intended purpose. So today, the good news about this amendment is that there is already a single treasury account with the Bank of Ghana that will ring-fence this increase to pay for energy shortfall debt or revenue shortfalls, to also pay and to stabilize our currency. Even let's ask ourselves.
So this one will not go. This one will not go into the consolidated fund.
No, they are creating a single treasury account that is ring-fenced by the Act to make sure that that money is used judiciously. Because you and I know, even statutory agencies and funds were misused under the previous administration. You remember they did Capping and Realignment Act that capped GET Fund and NHI. All these have been released of that restriction for them to achieve its mandate. So finally, let me come to the IMF reputational issues. Look, every economy, you see that we are doing better in terms of energy exchange rate stability. We are doing better in terms of fuel. We're also doing better in terms of reserves accumulations and gold accumulation. As a result of those prudent economic gains we are doing, the IMF has given us a positive outlook. When a country is given a positive outlook, what it simply means is that you can now participate freely in the capital markets. Aside that, S&P, I don't know if you followed, S&P has given Ghana an upward adjustment from the JAM statement.
You mean Standard and Poor? Standard and Poor, yeah.
In fact, JP Morgan has also given our CD and other stock in Ghana higher ratings. So the economy that we inherited, that saddles this country with a total debt of 726 billion Ghana cedis minus SOE debt, an unemployment of 14.7%, high corruption incidences, and all those difficulties and cost of living crisis that we suffered. Yet, this government has taken the bull by its horn in making sure that we put the money back to the people. Everybody listening to me this morning knows that the fuel price is on the decline. Inflation too is improving. Everybody watching me this morning also know that transport prices have gone down. Everybody listening to me is that universities have started receiving alerts to refund the money for students under the no fee stress policy. Academic sanitary pads are ongoing as we speak. Distribution are ongoing as we speak. When you do all this, the cumulative effect of this one city does not net off the positive gains we have had under the last 5 months. And let me assure everybody that the CD performance that we are seeing now won't be temporary. It has come to stay. So fuel prices will still come down. Because why we are getting these trade-offs is not because somebody is controlling dollars somewhere. It is because of the policies that we put. Look, in April, the Bank of Ghana put 490 million US dollars into the forex market. As the day they were doing it until the 5th April, the CD to the dollar was 15.7. Just because of the injection of that money into the forex market, it brought it down to 14.91, just overnight. From there, you know our gold reserves are now building up at the Bank of Ghana. And there's a surge in gold price above $3,133, meaning that we have more forex. So anybody sitting at home thinking that I will keep my dollar because it can change, you better do something good. If not, you will regret it. So the MPP, yes, I don't blame them.
Are you assuring us on the show today that what we're beginning to see with the CD appreciation is not a blip?
No, it is not.
It's sustainable?
It's sustainable. And every interventions that have been implemented is yielding results. In fact, we expect to sell $12 billion of gold this year. The total monthly requirements for BDCs and other importers is only $350 million. The reason why we usually see exchange rate not being stable is because the Bank of Ghana doesn't have enough dollars to supply the forex market. Now, if we have more exchange, why should the dollar
if you have more forex?
If we have more forex, why should the exchange rate suffer? So for me, I know that fuel price will continue to go down, and people should not just listen to our politics. Go to the export price.
But are you also aware that the strength of the CD is not only attributable to internal factors, there are also external factors.
I know.
Now, what happens if these external factors kick in?
That is why,
and the dollar, and the CD begins to suffer some kind of a depreciation.
So let's use this as an indication here.
Okay.
Look, when you say when the external performance is not favorable, what is its impact
on the currency?
So let me tell you one. First of all, if you have enough buffers, that's why the Bank of Ghana is building excess reserves to make sure that we diversify our trading route. If American dollar hits us hard and you have diversified export earning commodities, you will still not suffer.
But we're not there yet.
We are not there yet, but we are building. We are building. So that's what I'm saying, that if you think that it will change in future, watch again. Because this government, in fact, Gold Board is doing the magic. We gave them first $279 million US dollars. They returned to the country $540 million. We released another $380 million. They returned $1.1 billion. We are expected to spend $12.2 billion this year in gold pitches. So if you are able to build enough buffers, irrespective of what happens in the economic front in terms of external performance, we will still not suffer.
Okay, so saying that based on the economic trajectory that we are on,
yes,
we would have more than enough supply of dollars in the system
into the forex market,
and by the singular intervention, act of intervention by Gold Board alone would sort of rake in a lot of dollars, which would, to all intents and purposes, strengthen the CD.
Yes.